Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Must be another top 5 roundup. I love making these videos, they're so much fun. Today, 5 of what I think are the best watches you can buy for $400 US or even a little bit less. In fact, this should have been a $500 roundup, but all my choices end up being below $400. I just can't help myself, it's in my blood. Now, everything I said at $200 applies just as much, if not more, at $400. You want a decent brand, you want something that you can be happy having spent a little bit of money on. You want durability, reliability, longevity, something that's going to last the course. Alternatively, if you're a bit of a flipper or you plan on upgrading this one at some point in the future, you want to get as much of your money back as you possibly can. I think a really nice selection today: dress, dive, field, chrono. As always though, if your choice isn't here, leave me a comment, let me know what you think I missed out. Let's get into it. As always, these are in no particular order, but as always I'll start with my own personal choice at number 5. If I only had to pick one of these, it would be this one. In fact, this is probably in my near future, the Tissot Visodate. Alright then, the Tissot Visodate. When I compile these lists in my head, there are always a couple of watches that jump straight on, and this was the first one that came into my mind. I've been in love with the Tissot Visodate since I first saw this watch a couple of years ago. It is just beautiful. Visodate name goes back to 1950. I believe it was Tissot's first automatic with a date complication, and they're clearly aping that mid-century aesthetic with this one. This is my favourite, the black dial with the silver case. They also do a slightly more conservative looking cream dial, again with a silver case, this time on a brown strap. They also have a gold one. Just bear in mind, this is a gold PVD. It won't look like you're wearing a gold watch. It will look like you're wearing a gold coloured watch. There's a fundamental difference there. So this one is the choice for me. Great set of dimensions on this one: 40mm diameter, 20mm at the lug, tapering down to 18mm at the butterfly clasp there, a good looking butterfly clasp as well. 11.6mm thick, housing the Swiss automatic movement. This one contains an ETA 2836-2, a derivative of the ETA 2824, but with a day-date complication. 25 joules, 38-hour power reserve. All that kind of usual stuff from this level of movement. What are the downsides of this one then? Well, no loom on those beautiful Dauphine hands. 30 meters water resistance as well only. I think this is a desk watch. This is your Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 office type watch. I think you're going to have to pair it with a G-Shock or something a bit more robust for the weekends. Also bear in mind that when you're getting into these Swiss automatics, it does come with a servicing cost. You're probably not servicing this one all that often because, as I said, you're not going to get it wet, but that's going to sting you at least $100 a service. Just bear that in mind. But I can forgive it. I think that is just such a pretty watch. Definitely going to be one of these in my future, the Tissot Visodate. Well, these are my videos and I can cheat a little bit if I want to. At number 4, we have a GDM Cycle. Okay, I'm cheating slightly again, but hey, it's my video. Number 4, a GDM Cycle. I think at this price point at $400, you're actually getting a chunk of change here. There's 3 obvious watches to choose from. This is the most famous of them, the SARB 033. Bit of a classic here. Black dial. Lovely, lovely watch. Slightly smaller than the Visodate at 38mm in diameter, but don't worry about that. It's quite chunky on the wrist. I think it sits really well. My friend's got one of these. I've got 7-inch wrists. I tried it on and it's just beautiful. Very, very comfortable. If you don't fancy the black dial, there is also a white dial. This is the 035, but identically spec to the 033. This one, see-through case back, sapphire on the front, crucially, unlike a lot of the hard Lex you'll find on cheaper Seikos. Nice etched crown there. This one contains the 6R15 movement. Now, unlike the Visodate, which had that high beat 4Hz ETA, this one is only 21,600 beats per hour, 23 joule 50-hour power reserve, so not quite as smooth a sweep, but then again, these have got great reputations as being robust, reliable movements. Probably won't need serviced as often as the 033, which is a consideration. If this one's a little bit too plain for you, why don't you look at the 017, aka the Alpinist. Now, gold hands, green dial, perhaps not for everyone, but I think if you get over the initial shock, there's enough visual appeal on that dial to keep you looking, to keep you besotted by this watch for a long, long time. just gorgeous. Now, 2 crowns there, as you can see. The second crown operates an inner rotating bezel. This one is a Japanese mountaineer's watch. There's a little compass in there. I have no idea how it works, but then again, I'm not a mountaineer. So you got a couple of different options. What's the downsides of them? Well, the bracelets on the 033, I never think that Seiko make much of an attempt to match the polishing, the brushing on the end links with the case, and the leather strap on the Alpinist is supposedly really pretty stiff. A lot of people though swap them out for Strapcode. Strapcode pretty much make a living ditching Seiko stock bracelets. Looks like they've got one coming up for the 033. They already do one for the Alpinist. Great watches these, and you'll have no problems flipping them if you get bored, but I suspect these are all long-term purchases. At number 3, if you fancy a watch that's been to the moon but don't want to drop 3K on a Speedmaster, it's the Bulova Moon Watch. So a good looking big watch on a full stainless steel bracelet that's been to the moon for $350, I think this Bulova well worth considering. So the story is that it was Apollo 15, the 4th manned mission to the moon. The commander there was Dave Scott. And unfortunately, just before they were about to launch, Dave Scott's Omega Speedmaster, the standard issue NASA watch, broke. Nobody's quite sure whether Bulova had slipped him a 50 or not, but he just happened to have one of these in his handbag, popped it on, hence the Bulova went to the moon. This particular Bulova went to the moon. Sold recently for 1.7 million US, Bulova decided that they ought to cash in on that lunar popularity, and they reissued this one in 2016. And it's a fantastic looking big piece. Now it is quartz. If that puts you off, then I think you're missing a good trick here. It says on that little subdial at 6, 262 kilohertz. It's an ultra high frequency quartz. They claim it's 3 times more accurate than a regular quartz movement, accurate to within a few seconds a year. Now it is a chronograph there as well. You've got pushers at the 2 and the 4. From looking at this watch in action, the little subdial at the 6 ticks twice per second, the dial at the 3 spins once per second when the chronometer is in action. Pretty good looking bracelet on this one, including a nice butterfly clasp there. You've even got a little bit of an inscription with the Apollo 15 date on the back, and if you don't fancy it on the bracelet, you can get it on this textured leather strap with the NATO that Dave Scott wore. Well, perhaps not quite the NATO that Dave Scott wore, but you get the idea. This one even cheaper at $299. So downsides then, well, it's quartz as discussed. Also only 50 meters water resistance, not too much water on the moon, and it's a big boy, 45 millimeter in diameter, 13.5 mil thick, only 20 mil at the lugs, but 52 lug to lug. Now I've got a 7-inch wrist. Apparently this one wears quite flat. I'm not sure whether this one could be a little large for me or not, but if you've got the wrist to pull it off and you don't mind a quartz, Bulova Moonwatch, $350, definitely worth a look. And at number 2, a bit of an icon, the Hamilton Khaki. Okay, so your first problem if you want a Hamilton between $350 and $450 is the sheer number of the things. You got bracelets, you got multiple leather straps, suede straps, there's black dials, cream dials, off-white dials, there's manual winds, there's quartzes and there are autos. So I've taken the hardship out of this and I've picked 2 for you. I've picked the Khaki King 2 and the Khaki Field Automatic. Both I think are fantastic. This little Khaki Field is slightly smaller. It's at 38 mil diameter. You got that lovely little red second hand tip there as well, and a date at 3 o'clock. The Khaki King is a little bit bigger at 40 mil. Unfortunately, it misses out on the little red tip, but you do get a day-date complication at 12. That one's a bit of a polarizer. A lot of people don't like it because it cuts into the numerals and deletes the 12 entirely. I don't mind. I think it's quite a pretty watch. Now, you're on the Swatch Group ladder. Hamilton used to be an American-owned and operated company with a long history and heritage in watchmaking. Swatch bought them out a few years ago. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You get access to those nice ETA movements. This one actually says printed on the back there 28342. I believe Hamilton call this an H40, and the one with the date complication in here, I believe they call it H10. They're all just their own variants of these 2824s. So everything I said about the Visa date and the servicing cost applies to the Hamilton. What else? Well, you get a bit of loom here. You get 100 meters with the field water resistance, you're only getting 50 meters of water resistance with this Hamilton Khaki King, so do bear that in mind. Handsets are also pretty flat and they're just printed dials, so don't expect a lot of texture, a lot of depth on the dials. I owned an Aviation Pioneer a couple of years ago. I found that the polished surfaces and the bezel, they scuff up pretty quick, so if you're rough with your watches, do bear that in mind. I think these Hamiltons maybe look a little bit tatty, a little bit quickly, but you can't argue with a Swatch Group ladder, Hamilton History and Heritage, $400 for this one, even less, $380 for the Khaki King. I know what you're thinking, where's the bloody dive watch? Don't worry, here it is at number 1, but it's a bit controversial. It's a Steinhart. Controversial, an homage as my dive watch choice under 400. Not just any homage though, I'm going to be very specific. Now Steinhart have got a great reputation. They started doing these new 39mm models, clearly aimed at the ladies or men who are very comfortable with their sexuality. I'm going to avoid that. I'm also going to avoid the standard 42mm models in green and black. I'm going to be very specific today. I'm going to say the only two Steinharts you should be looking at are this one, the Ocean One Vintage Red, and preferably this one, the Ocean Vintage Military. Now the Ocean One Vintage Red available for $375 US before you ship it. I appreciate that's going to cost a few dollars. This one is based on quite a rare Rolex, the Rolex Red Sub from the early 1970s. These ones rarer every day, costing upwards of $20,000. But my pick would be the Ocean Vintage Military. This one based on the Rolex Mil Sub, again from the early 1970s. There were only about 1,500 of these ever made. One just sold for $168,000. You're not going to get on a bus, look across at the person next to you and find them wearing a Rolex Mil Sub. Unless of course John Mayer happens to be on the bus with you that day. He's got one of these in his collection. So this is my choice then. A little bit different from your standard subby homage, vintage lume, sword hands and quite a different bezel. Regardless of which of these two Steinharts you choose, you're getting a Swiss-made watch. They have spec'd with an ETA 2824 Swiss movement, 300 meters water resistance, all stainless steel, very well built, very reliable, great reputations these one. They are a little bit bigger though, 42mm in diameters and long lug length at about 52. So again, something for the larger gentlemen only. So have I justified it? Are you convinced that you should buy an homage with your $400? Leave me a comment. That's definitely my choice though. So there you have it, plenty of fantastic watches you don't even have to spend 500 US on. My pick of them, that black Viso date, such a wee honey. Also tempted by the Alpinist. Let's see what 2018 brings. Thanks for watching, see you in the next video.